number 2 with the initial starboard advantage, and Georgetown entering with a blue flag down by the pin, initially on port tack. They've alternated entries every race right now, and South Florida was the number 1 seed. They won the round robin, and that's why they get the final starboard advantage coming into the dial-up. It is definitely an advantage. It's not a race-determining advantage. Both teams are pretty good about breaking up this dial-up, but it does give them the upper hand coming into this race here, which is psychologically a big factor. So here we are in the dial-up. Both boats head to win. Boat number 2 is preventing boat number 3 from sailing on port tack and getting up to the other side of the committee boat. And that's the whole game. Boat 2, University of South Florida, wants to hold that position as long as they can. And Georgetown in boat number 3 is trying to break up the dial-up and get sailing on port tack towards the committee boat. So we'll see how they do. They're still in the dial-up. It's been over a minute. Most dial-ups are usually broken up by about 2.5 minutes to start, and it's 2:45 right now. So if South Florida can hold this thing past 2:30, they've done a great job. Both boats starting to go backwards right now. So in that situation, boat number 2, South Florida trying to get out of there, sailing on port. You'll see boat number 3 match sailing on port. Sailing backwards and controlling your boat down speed is very difficult in a sailboat, and it's a skill that's particularly comes into focus in match racing. There's no other time in keel boats you spend that much time stopped and going backwards. There it is, about 2 minutes and 15, the dial-up's broken up. The boats head into what we call the playground, the area out to the right of the committee boat looking upwind. All right, and there will be, I hear protests there. I personally didn't see a foul, but the initial advantage in that situation goes to blue, to Georgetown. They come out of that in a better position. The umpires responded to the protest with a green flag, which means no foul. There's a minute and 35, so as in the last start, Nevin Snow and Georgetown, boat 3, will choose when to jibe and lead back. It'll happen in the next 10 seconds, I predict. And both in all races, the boat that's taken the lead has won the start. So we'll see what Chris Stockey does. And there's Chris Stockey saying, I want the lead. There's nothing Nevin can do about that. When he turns back, the boat trailing can always jump down in front. So the minute and 10, Georgetown becomes the pusher in boat number 3, and Stockey becomes the leader. Now Stockey's got to be careful that he doesn't go so low that Nevin can get over the top of him. So here's what Nevin's trying to do. Nevin says, I want the lead, because in fact the leading boat has won every start. So Chris Stockey went extra deep there and allowed Nevin to sail over the top of him and become the leader. So we'll see how that pans out, but that could be a moment to remember, seeing how this start works out. With 35 seconds to go, Nevin now takes the lead, which is what he wanted. One thing I've noticed in all the starts is both boats have started on the same tack. What's a stronger move for the boat number 2 in this situation, the boat that's going to be to windward, is to tack before the gun at about 10 seconds, so you're up to speed on port tack. So here comes the tack, 15 seconds to go. Nevin's matching the tack, but he's going to have to tack back onto starboard. So this will be the first split start we've seen in this finals. And in the split start, if the line is square, the advantage goes to the boat that starts on port tack. If the line is equal, even to the wind, and both boats are on line on time, then the boat that starts on port has the initial advantage because they'll have the starboard in the first meeting. And that was the University of South Florida. So sure enough, as predicted, the initial advantage went to the boat on the right, and there is South Florida crossing with hardly a duck out of Georgetown. So South Florida has a strong length and change lead. The only difference is now that Georgetown has picked up the starboard card, but it only becomes a factor as if when they come back together, they've gained almost a length, so they can actually apply their starboard tack against South Florida. So by being the pusher there, South Florida was able to get the split start, and that turned out to be the deciding moment there. So it goes back to the start again. Still rolling?
Yeah, still rolling.
All right, here comes Georgetown down. I think South Florida has actually extended their lead. One thing we've seen with Chris Stockey and the University of South Florida is they've been consistently faster in open water. So that's one of the one of the things that would concern me if I was a Georgetown supporter right now, is now that Stockey has the lead, the team is shown to be faster. And so Georgetown has to be very careful here where they apply their attacks so that they don't, in trying to get free, they don't go the wrong way and give Stockey even more of a lead. So this is going to be a tricky beat for Georgetown. I would say they've done a good job if they're within 3 boat lengths at the first mark. That to me would be Georgetown's goal. So here's South Florida crossing, and now they've tripled their lead. They're ahead now by 4 lengths. So the lead just went from 1 and change to 3 and change, almost 4. So this is a familiar pattern from races 2 and 3, where South Florida got the early lead off the start and then extended from there. So here's Nevin Snow and his team. Nice little header on port, tacking on the lift on starboard, but looking out into the farther across there, I can see Stockey's team is hiking hard in a big puff. They are probably sailing not faster and 5 degrees higher right now than Georgetown, just by the breeze they're in. So early signs right now are very positive for South Florida, and Nevin's team has to remain patient. Still a lot of racetrack here, and try to make some gains downwind. As the pair approaches the first windward mark of race 5 in the finals of the 2014 Intercollegiate National Match Racing Championship, it's University of South Florida with a very strong 4 boat length lead over Georgetown in a must-win race for both teams. South Florida had the initial advantage off the line. They took the split, they picked up the starboard advantage, and with that lead they were able to use some of their boat speed advantage that they've had throughout this series, in my opinion, to open up a 4-length lead. However, downwind, the boat behind usually catches up a little bit. The wind hits them first, they catch up, the boat ahead sails a little higher to defend, which you can see happening right now. So this is turning out to be what could be a very good match race. I would say of the 5 races so far, this is the closest the boats have been downwind. Now, Georgetown did something interesting to me there. They were in a position where they could have affected South Florida's wind with a simo jibe when South Florida jibed, but instead they chose to jibe away and sail in a different zip code. The positive of that, if they get a little more breeze or better shift, that helps them. But the negative of that is that they've lost any chance to ever put their wind shadow on the lead boat, and they were behind by a good 4 lengths. So it's a big risk, I think, in doing what they're doing, because if they end up going through this gate 3 or 4 lengths behind, it's going to make it much more difficult for them to take any kind of a nibble on the lead of the of South Florida. So here comes Georgetown back, and we'll see. But the initial look to me is that South Florida may have gained a little bit by holding, but we'll see when they come back together. All right, well, look at this. The split seemed to have helped Nevin's team a little bit. They got some nice pressure, and they have actually taken half of the lead out. They are trailing by 2 lengths. There's about a length of water between the boats. They are not on the ley line to the gate right now, so this is going to come down to the next jibe, and then the drops, and then the choice of which skate to go through. But right now, what you're going to probably see here is when boat number 2 jibes onto starboard, you'll see boat 3 jibe right on their wind, and here it comes, and here's the we call it the simo jibe, And here's where boat 3 doesn't want to over-rotate. They have to be very careful here and try and get over the top and crush the wind, take the wind of boat number 2. There's the pass. But what will happen here is the boats are going to end up out on starboard tack and probably coming in on port with boat number 2 taking the left-hand gate. We'll see how this plays out as they come to the gate. So what's your situation here, Chris?
Just keep going. I've got to bring it down again.
Yeah.
So just keep
Are we rolling here? All right, so here we go. If they're in the zone, then boat 3 has room. Boat 3 is definitely in the zone, and there's the pass. So Nevin Snow and his team, probably the most experienced match race team here at the regatta, just used some excellent match racing skill and technique to affect that pass. Initial separation, he made the gain, good positioning, good boat handling. That was the best match racing situation there, and they were on our way up to the second windward mark. All right, here we are about halfway up the second beat of the final race of the 2014 Intercollegiate National Match Racing Championship with Georgetown on the right with a starboard advantage. This race is dead even. Here comes the dial down. Very often that ends up backfiring. I would say that'll be, well, here comes the protest, and we'll see what the umpires think. If Nevin had to avoid, if boat 2 could have kept clear. This is going to be a pretty big call right here. Very often it's greened, and there it is, the green flag. By hunting down that way, in match racing, you're actually allowed to bear off at a boat that's trying to pass the stern of you, as long as you don't go below 90 degrees to the true wind. So the hunt was legal, and Chris Stockey did a good job on port of getting underneath Nevin and has now picked up the valuable starboard card. So we'll see if he can capitalize that into a lead change here. All right, well, here we are at the top of the second beat. Georgetown, after that dial down, went out to the left and picked up just a humongous shift and pressure. And what was basically a even race at the dial down has turned into almost a 10-length lead for Georgetown. So unlucky. I think that in that situation, University of South Florida did all they could do, which they were on port and they went behind. And then there was a split and Georgetown picked up the next breeze. So tough to say in hindsight that South Florida should have lead bowed there, but I don't think they were advanced enough to lead bow. So sometimes it happens. It's been a it was a great race up to that point, but unfortunately right now for University of South Florida, their options are limited. And fortunately for Georgetown, they are on their way to what looks to be a pretty strong win in race number 5, the deciding race of this championship. We are just starting the run, and we'll tune back in at the finish to see if they hold it. But right now, looking good for the Hoyas. All right, and as the Georgetown Hoyas approach the finishing line of the last race of the 2014 Intercollegiate National Match Racing Championship, there's a blue flag, there's the win. They have won the series 3-2 in a come from behind. They were down 2-1. They tied it up 2-2, and they won the deciding race. But what a race it was. They were actually trailing down the first run and had to pass the University of South Florida team right at the gate to take the lead, and then halfway up the beat, there was actually a dial down. So it was a great race. And congratulations, we have skipper Nevin Snow, AJ Ryder, Katya De Silva, and Alex Post to win the 2014 championship. And great job to the University of South Florida. It was a great finals. Every race was contested well at the start, and they did a great job too and are well deserving in the runner-up position.